Hi, and welcome to our Jim2 webinar on lists. These webinars are designed to surface information that you may not know. As such, we'll be going right back to the basics for each topic to make sure that you're fully informed on each section. I'd like to thank all of you that filled out a survey from last webinar for both the feedback and the suggestions for future webinars. Some of your suggestions included wanting to know more about stock management, service hours and scheduling, and budgets. We did receive a few new questions in the feedback survey, but as it was anonymous, unfortunately, we were not able to get back to you with answers. I've since added the option for you to add your email address with your feedback, so if you want to ask a question in the comments, we can get back to you. At the end of each session, we'll have a Q&A in which you can type any question you like into chat and we'll either answer it live or get back to you with an answer after our webinar. The information part of our webinar will also be uploaded to our website, so you can rewatch if you wanted to go over something again, or you can let someone know that is not on today so that they can see the information also. So let's start on today's topic, Jim2 and lists. So today we're going to look at several aspects of lists within Jim2. In many ways, Jim2 is built around using lists. You can use them to search for something specific or a group of things with a common thread. They can be used to find everything within Jim from leads or quotes to customer purchases. The lists are one of the main ways to focus workflow within your business. By setting the right refresh timers and seeing the counts next to each list, you can get a snapshot of the work that's happening in the business at a glance. Over the webinar, I'll look at different sections of Jim2, similarities and differences between the different sections, and I'll give you some ideas for lists that you can use in your business. So the big question is, what lists should I use to make Jim2 as productive as possible? That's going to depend on a couple of things. What you do as a business, what information and fields you're using within Jim, and what job you perform within the business. I'll try and talk about lists that I believe most businesses would find helpful. But if you want some specific help in organizing your lists, please get in touch with me or the support team. Let's start by going to the Jobs tab and clicking Create Job List. I will point out just for now that there is a drop down underneath underneath the options from this button, but I'll circle back on that a little bit later. For now, let's familiarize ourselves with the filter boxes available when creating a job list. I won't go over all the options here as there's a lot of ways you can filter. However, I will point out some important fields and possible use cases for them. The customer field, if you want to look at all of the jobs listed against a single customer. The status field, if you want to see how many jobs are on waiting. The name field, if this is the person that actually owns the job. So you can either set this as an exact person or set it as the person that is currently logged in. This will become important later when we talk about publishing lists. Priority, you can look at all the jobs that are set to high or urgent. We also have some item fields here, but note that this is used for item codes, not stock codes. I'll show you how we can get into the stock codes soon. On the right-hand side, we have some checkboxes. You can use them individually, but they are more powerful when combined with other filters. For example, you might want to find all active jobs for a particular customer. You might also want to see all finished jobs that relate to a particular item. The checkboxes themselves are mostly ticked or not ticked, but some checkboxes have a third option displayed as a square. Ticked means that the statement is true. In this case, bring back jobs that have unread emails. Blank means it's not true, so bring back jobs that do not have unread emails. And square means that we want to see both. Bring back all jobs that have and do not have unread emails. Within the standard job list, only the unread email and reserve checkboxes have the third option, but we will see more of these types of checkboxes later on. There is also a great setting at the bottom of the screen called Auto Pick Stock. When enabled, and then click Run, you'll have an availability column appear, letting you know if the stock you have on hand can be supplied to each job. There is also the option on most fields to set a field to show you everything except for one choice. For example, if I double click on the word status, it changes the box to green. This means that it will show all jobs except for the ones with the status set in this field. For example, if we add the booked status and press run, it will then remove all of those jobs from the list. To stop it from being green, simply double click the name again. Now, at the bottom of the screen, we can see a tab called Advanced List. If we select this, we get more filters that we can use to create our list. I'll let you look through these more thoroughly at your own pace. However, there are some pointing out. We have date in, date due, and date out. So you can set a fixed date range in between these, or you can click the calendar icon next to it for a roaming date range. We also have stock parts, the order number, serial number, uh, or even the attributes that might be associated with the stock codes to bring back all jobs that have used that stock. So let's say we've created a list and we want to access it tomorrow and the next day. It's recommended to give the list a name because list number 2 won't actually mean a lot. If we want the list to automatically refresh, we can put a number in the box next to that field. This represents how many minutes in between refreshes. For something you want to stay on top of, we can set it to 1 minute. But for something you want to check occasionally, maybe set it to 60 minutes or not at all. Make sure to push enter or click run after you have entered into that box. A yellow background will appear, which means that the refresh timing is now active. Once you have these set, you can then click Pin in the top right. This is what's known as a pinned list, meaning you will not be able to close the list until the pin is deselected. Be aware that there is a limit of 25 lists per section for the total amount of lists you can have open at any one time, and pinned lists do count towards this total. So I'll cancel that list and make a new one. Let's set this to only show active jobs for Ashley. That's me. Put my name in, give it a name, we'll call it my list, and we'll give it a refresh timer of 1, and we'll pin it. So now that we have a list that will keep itself up to date and will show my jobs, wouldn't it be great if we could then share it to all of our staff? It would mean that they could be working from the same list in the same way without having to create it themselves. We can set that up in just a couple more steps. If we take a look at our list, Instead of putting a static name in, we can click the cogs next to it. This will now always assume the name of whoever is currently logged in. This means you won't need to create a list for each of your staff. You'll only need to create one. Then we can go back to the drop-down underneath Create Job List, and we can select Save Publish List. We get a new screen asking about who to publish it to. You'll notice that there are security groups on the left-hand side. You can choose an entire security group or use the arrow next to it to choose individuals inside security groups. In my case, I'll choose everyone. If you're publishing for your staff and you don't wish for them to be able to make changes or remove the list, you can untick those options in the right-hand side. Hit save, and now when another user logs in, they'll automatically have this list on the left-hand navigation pane. They will not be able to remove it. Just a final quick tip on this is that a publish list will have an underline to help it stand out. You can also see in the top bar that it states publish list. We can also change some values in this list by right-clicking and selecting either the job status or the job date due. You can easily update a whole list of values. I'll add some links to these features for a more in-depth explanation at the end of the webinar. I will let you know there's one main difference between published lists and the lists you create yourselves. In the published lists, when you move column headers within the results section, you can place them anywhere. But if you log out and back in, the headers will have returned to their initial placement. In the list that you create for yourself, you can move the columns around to suit yourself and they will stay there, as long as you press run after moving them. There are more columns that you can access as well. If you right click and go to grid columns, you'll get a menu with some more column headers that you can click and drag into the column header bar. Also, if you wanted to remove some of the headers, you can click and drag them away from the bar so that they're no longer included in the data. This would primarily be used to set up the data for an export to Excel, as the as the columns stay in exactly the same place in the Excel sheet. To do that, we can right click and click Export Data. As I said, the Excel sheet will show the same information that has been set up in the list, including column order, uh, groupings, things like that. So let's see a practical example using a job list. Let's say I want to make another job list, but I only want to see things that are overdue or due today, sort of a to-do list for my jobs today. We'll click Create Job List. We'll click the cogs to allow it to be published later on. We'll untick Finished and Ready. We'll go to Advanced, and we'll click the calendar next to due date. Hover on today and select till today. We'll give the list a name, refresh. We will pin it and hit run. Now we have a list that will show jobs that are overdue and due today. And if we wanted to publish it, we can do the same steps as before. Save publish list, include everyone, and hit save. As I stated earlier, lists are available in nearly every part of Jim2 and are very closely tied with its core functionality. Let's take a look at what's available in lists associated with purchase orders. You'll recognize some of the features from the jobs list screen, so I won't go back over them outside of pointing them out. We have the Advanced tab, the ability to give a refresh and name to a list, and a pin. Of course, now that we're looking at purchase orders, the filters have changed to suit. You can filter by the vendor to only show purchase orders for a single supplier. You can search for a particular order status to make sure your orders are on track. Actually, although we're focusing on lists today, I thought I'd take the opportunity to explain something I hear come up a lot. And that is, what is the difference between a received status and the finished status on a purchase order? The received status can be set once the stock has arrived at your location and you want to sell it, before the finance team has finalised the order. Once they have finalised the order, it can be set to finished to complete the work. Essentially, the received status allows you to enter goods into stock and therefore sell it before the order is completely finalised. It is important to remember that the costs of goods sold are not calculated to the accounts until it is set to finish. So it's important to ensure that all purchase orders are finished before the month is closed off where possible. There are some other fields we can check out, like the type of order for purchasing or expense orders, as well as a few others, the person's name that lodged the order, as well as any groups you may have applied to your vendors. If we select the Advanced tab, you'll find some more, in particular, date ranges and stock options. The dates are fairly self-explanatory and function the same way as other parts of the program, but I do want to draw your attention to the stock functions here. You can filter on any linked jobs, as well as a few others, in particular, groups of stock and attributes. To filter on a single piece of stock, you can add the stock code here. You can also see purchase orders based on the group that you have assigned to a stock, or even the attributes, as I just said. Let's see a couple practical examples involving purchase orders. First, we'll create a list that shows all orders that are currently open with a couple different vendor groups. This can be helpful when you have vendors organized into groups and want to see purchases that are open or even closed for those categories at the moment. We'll choose our vendor group. We'll say software and click run. Let's say software is not enough. We also want to include any hardware vendors. We can do that too. I can get a good view of everything I've ordered through hardware and software or any other groups I've set over any date range I've set also. One of the impressive list features I want to tell you about is that you can order stock from a list of jobs that you may only be able to partially stock. It's called the Auto Create Purchase Orders function. It's a real time saver and can help speed up your purchasing. Let's give it a go. Right now, we've got a list of open jobs that have not yet been fulfilled. We'll right click and select Auto Create Purchase Orders. We have some options at the top to consider, such as if you only want a specific vendor, if we want to include non-depleting stock, and actually there's another option called Order All. If we tick this, it will include all stock from the jobs in the list rather than just the stock that's missing. Now, if we push run, as you can see, the stock from the jobs in the list has been populated with the job number tied to it, as well as the quantity that needs to be ordered. If you see something that you don't want to order, you can untick that in the order column. When you're ready to create the purchase orders, we can click Order in the bottom right of the screen. As long as the stock has a supplier associated with it, the purchase orders will be created when we click Order. And speaking of stock, let's look at a stock list. Again, there are common functions that you've seen on the other list, but this one seems like there's less options. We'll click Advanced. There we go. Now you can filter based on the type of stock or the vendor and everything you'd normally expect. But there are another couple fields that set the stock list apart. You can choose to filter based on the quantity in stock. There are a few options around showing greater than, less than, or equal to zero, which would be helpful in finding what needs restocking. For those of you using different stocking locations and bins, you can narrow down the stock report based on those. The date section has a new dropdown and it references the actions that have been performed on the stock on the dates that you specify. For example, you can see which items were moved between a set of dates or sold between a set of dates. Date not sold refers to stock in the date range that has not been sold at all over that time. Pretty handy. If you recall, we were talking about checkboxes earlier. I mentioned they had three positions, ticked, not ticked, and square. Well, you can see these options on stock as nearly all the checkboxes on this screen allow for these options. There are some functions that you can, there are some functions that are available by right clicking on the stock list also. Let's create a list and see how we can add non-reporting groups and pricing templates to all the items in a stock list. We've created a list, we've got our advanced tab open. Now, in my case, I want to use the GL group to base the non-reporting group on, but you can use any combination of filters to add. I'll select software from the GL group drop down and hit run. Now, if I right click, you can see the option add stock to non-report group and set stock to non-report group. The add option will include the items in an additional non-reporting group if the item already belongs to more. The set option will remove the stock items in the list from all non-report groups and then include it only in the one we select. In either case, it is important to remember that these options affect all items in the list you create. So be careful when you're doing work like this that you're 100% sure that you want to update everything that is shown in the list. So we'll right click and select Add Stock to Non-Report Group. We'll choose Software to align with our GL group and click OK. And there we go, an easy way to have stock added to non-reporting groups. I also mentioned pricing templates, so let's do that. Now, you will need to have a variety of pricing templates, or actually, even if you only have one, this can be an easy way to make sure that all stock items have a pricing level set. We'll right-click our list, and we can again see two options. Apply price template to current and apply price template to all. Current will update only the selected stock item, and all will update the whole list. We'll select all. We can then select our pricing template and click OK. And that's it. We've just updated the list of items with a new pricing template. Now for a list that's a little different, let's take a look at an email list. It's not uncommon to hear questions around how to best find particular emails that have come into Jim2. I find one of the easiest ways to do this is to use an email list. We'll create a list and click Advanced. By limiting to either the sent from or the date range or both, you should be able to find just about any email that has come through Jim2. You can also use email lists to monitor for new jobs or new leads based on the email boxes you have set up in Jim. There is a bit of setup in receiving email through Jim2. So if you're not yet using this feature and would like to, I'll have a link at the end of the Q&A for you to read. Our support department is there to help if you need them. Now, it's a little tricky to show you on my demo system, but one that is important is that if you are using one or many email addresses through Jim2, you should have an unread email list for each of them. You can set this up by creating an email list, unticking read, clearing the date range, use the delete button, not backspace, and selecting the folder you wish to monitor. I'm not able to select a folder as there's no email boxes set up on my demo system, but you should be able to select one. Add a refresh, name, and pin the list, and that will help keep you on top of any unread emails coming in. One other thing that is quite popular is that you can set up lists for each section with no filters added to be used as a searching list. This comes in really handy to find information quickly and easily. To do this, you just need to create a list, make sure the search parameters are open as wide as possible, give it a name, hit run, and give it a pin. This can be done for any section you find yourself repeatedly needing to search, but I would recommend setting it up for jobs, card files, and stock. Some additional searching tips: you can right click and click Show Find Panel, which will have a panel appear that you can then type and search in. You can actually push Control S to make that appear and disappear as well. You can click inside a column and just start typing, and it will act as a search function as well. There are a couple more tricks that can help you make a bit more sense of data, especially if the list you've created is particularly long. There is a little gap in between the results and the filters that says drag a column header here to group by that column. So if we take suburb, for example, and drag it into this section, we'll then have all the card files, in this case, in the list grouped into different suburbs. You can pop that back as a column header by simply clicking and dragging it back. Let's try it with suburb and then address. Now we can see a tree of information that shows card files grouped by suburb and then by address. You can actually drag up to 8 column headers to this section for creating particularly large trees of information. And even better is if you right click and export data, it will keep that grouping within the Excel file. So as you can see, lists can provide a lot of functionality in everyday gym use. You can extract information, as organize information, as well as updating information, all in a logical way. Today we covered job lists, how to publish job lists, extracting data from lists, purchase orders and stock lists, email lists, and given some examples of lists that you might find useful. I would recommend that you set up a series of lists that make sense for your business and publish them to staff as needed. It can really make a difference when you're all looking at the same information. Finally, I'd like to thank you for attending today. I'll leave some information on the screen about how you can get in touch with us, and I'll add some links to the chat that we've talked about today. I'll also add a link for the webinar survey for you to fill out, but we'll also email this out to everyone. Now I'll introduce Steve Morris, who'll answer any questions you might have about lists. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome aboard, and thanks for coming to our second session. If anyone's got any questions, please fire away. Put them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if not, we'll refer you through to the right people after the webinar. I think we had a couple of questions. Can you exclude 2 fields in a list? Is one that's just come through. Yes, you can. You can exclude multiple list filters, and to turn them green, put the values in there, and that will exclude both types. Yes, and you'll also notice there's an and. In fact, Ash, I might get you to bring that up on screen for me if you could, just to make it easier. So you'll notice a little on the groups, on the card groups, you'll see there's an and and an or. So if you're doing multiple groups there, you can decide whether that's a exclude this and that or one or the other. But I think the real question was, if I was in a particular list and a job list might be a good one, Ash, and I want to exclude booked and non-urgent, then yes, you can both of those can be filtered out. Okay, I'm going to try and answer some more here. Can we combine different lists? No. So you do have to have separate areas for job lists and quote lists. However, now this is something we're going to cover in a coming session. We have some really nice dashboard widgets that do allow you to combine the list counters into the dashboard. Not easy to show you right now, but I would suggest it would be good to either follow us up or we could wait for the next session. So that's a nice way to be able to have a whole combination of different job and quote type and email lists in a single view at the start of your day to keep an eye on all the different sort of KPIs and counters that you're trying to keep track of. One of our guests missed how to save a published list. So Ash, can you just do a quick how to save a published list again?
Absolutely. So we can click the drop down underneath create list, and there should be an option there that says save publish list. And in here is just a matter of selecting who you would like to publish it to, and then what rights you want that person to have on that list, and click save.
Okay, just following up again on the list exclusions, I can see the clarification. Yes, and I agree that will come. So one of the things that's been asked is if we can have a multi-select on status. So if you're in a job list, Ash, for me, and just go to that status field. So you'll see there you can only select one at the moment, and we have had other customers ask us about making that a multiple select, and that is actually under review at the moment with the team. So look out for that.
I might just point out on that one that if you do keep it open a bit wider, you can actually organize by the column headers as well. So that might make it easy to find multiple statuses that you're looking for.
And I think using the dashboards, actually, I'll get you to just go to dashboard for a sec for me, Ash. Just click on the dashboard there. Let's see what you've got set up if you've got anything there.
I'm not sure if I do. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. That's fine. Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. So just go ahead and just click the edit widget there on that first one, the little pencil. And you'll see down there on the source where it says job, just change that to, well, actually job's fine, go to list. So you'll see that's the list that Ashley created earlier. So if he hits OK to that, that is actually now separate from the list itself. No, that's okay. You can drill down. So they do drill down, and yeah, and you can play with the colors and do all sorts of things. So when we talk about being able to combine lists, so even to address the issue of I want to see nice and easily and clearly in front of me a list counter for, you know, in progress versus booked versus finished jobs and quotes and email, you can have that in a single view using those dashboard published list widgets. So that's something worth investigating. I'm going to keep going with the questions.
Sorry, I just want to respond to one there, Steve,
Yep.
from Anne Davies.
Mhm.
I actually did, it was a little bit of performance trickery in that I had the folder location open, ready to go, knew where I was saving it, knew where I was opening it. So I wasn't actually opening it directly from Jim.
Okay. As in where to save it, you mean? Where to save the file?
She was asking how did I open it directly from Jim, the spreadsheet,
I
and
see.
I wasn't. I just had it all ready to go, sort of in the
Yep.
background.
I mean, there is a trick to that. When you actually go to do the export, you can right click on the file that's in the folder to open it as well. I often do that. So where you've saved it, you can actually go and pretend to do the export again, and then you can just right click on the file and open it. That's a quick way. That's just a little handy tip. Okay. Done the published lists. We've covered off the status change, the multiple statuses. The marketing team and Ash will be following up where you can watch the video post its finish. Seeing what else we've got here. Yep, that's covered the list side of it. Is it possible to choose multiple statuses? I think we've just covered that. Sorry, I'm just reviewing some of them as I go. When you order from multiple jobs, will each order from the same vendor go into a separate PO, or can it go into one? So this is in the auto create PO. So that the answer is they would go into the same PO unless you select to add them to an existing PO. So when you go through that auto create screen, you'll notice, in fact, Ash, if you were just to go to a job and
Might
pretend to
need
do
to
an,
just cancel one of these so that we can run
yeah,
through it
cool,
again. But yeah,
perfect.
and
Yep.
then auto create.
Yeah, just run that. So you'll notice over there to your right, you've got a little column that says add to existing PO. So you're either going to create a combined purchase order with all the stock for a given vendor, or you can actually select just to add it to one that hasn't been sent yet. And that's very common where you're doing sort of batching the process of getting, preparing to place the orders throughout the day, and then going ahead placing all of those finalized orders towards the end of the day. Again, everyone's got a different process. I think that if you're not using auto create PO and you want to follow up on that, please do, because it's extremely helpful functionality. And even some of the more advanced things about having manual costs flow from quotes to jobs to those purchase orders is also very popular functionality that we can tell you about. And we've going down. Can you do a task list? Yeah. So within jobs, there are tasks. Can you do a task list? So you can do a task list. If Ash, just go to schedule. It's not from job. It's not obviously from jobs, but you'll see there you've got task list. So just click on that. You probably won't have any.
I won't have any tasks.
Yep.
No.
So that's where you would manage and see a collection of all the tasks that you've got within jobs that are assigned to you. So as a user. And again, if you've got any questions, or there's also the help. And if you just where it says regarding, see where it says none there, Ash. If you just click on that, you'll see that you can actually put in the job if you're wanting to do it that way. I hope that answers the question for you, Tan. Yeah, if you're linking a PO to a job, it's adding stock, it sounds like you might be doing it the other way around. So you've got a job, then you're going and creating the PO, and then you're telling it to push it back to that job, and it's actually the other way around. So Mark, I'd say the best option there is just to make sure you check in with support, and we can even do a quick remote session and just show you and make sure you're using the functionality as it's expected. What you're experiencing there is a real thing. There are situations where you might want to push stock from a purchase order to a job, but in the examples we were going through in a normal day-to-day functionality, you start at the job list level, and that would do the linkage back to the job, and it wouldn't be pushing extra stock onto it. I hope that's covered it off. I think I've covered off all the questions. If there's any others, I'm more than happy to field them. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and Ash, good job. it's great to see some of this. It's good to get a refresher, even for someone who's been using Jim for such a long time. So I hope the people that are on the call got some value out of that.
Fantastic. Well, as Steve says, if there are no more questions, we might wrap it up there. But thank you again for joining. I hope you're getting the information out of it. Oh, we got one more question pop in there,
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah, cool. Are projects and dashboards new? No, projects have been around for a long time. Dashboards, the new dashboard functionality that I just showed you is a 4.4 in the latest release. So let us know. That's people being emailed about getting that upgrade now.
Now that's specifically to do with the job counts in the dashboard,
Yes,
right?
that's right. Yep. So the
Yeah,
counters, the published list counters, is new functionality that's in the latest release. I think there's a few more that have just popped through. Thank you, everyone who's thanking us. Much appreciated.
very kind.
Uh, uh, just no, we definitely don't send the POs automatically. You get a chance to go and review those. It actually pops up and says, open. You can then review it, make the changes, adjust things, add to do whatever you wish to do, and then send that PO off.
Brilliant. Well, look out for the survey that you can let us know what you'd want to see in future webinars as well as letting us know if you thought we did a good job. But apart from that, thank you all, and we'll leave it there. Thank you again.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.